Lesson 1. Semantic barriers of communication. What are semantic barriers? Semantic barriers are the misunderstandings that occur by people trying to communicate an idea, but simultaneously having completely different meanings in mind for the words. What are the types of semantic barriers? Denotative barriers. Direct meaning of any word which must be shared by two people to understand each other is the denotative meaning. The barriers that arise due to the definition or meaning of a word used differently by sender and receiver are denotative barriers of communication. Connotative barriers refers to the differences in the meaning of the defined word. In addition to its exact or lexical meaning, words also acquire implied meanings called connotative meanings. Connotations are understood based only on an individual's experience. What are the barriers to effective communication? Barriers to effective communication. Physical barriers. 1. A physical barrier to communication can be defined as an element or a physical factor that acts as a distraction to hinder the flow of communication. A physical barrier can be natural or human-made and is easy to spot. Noise, bad architecture and closed doors are all physical barriers to listening. 2. Perceptual barriers. Perceptual barriers are internal biases that influence how we perceive other people, ideas, or events. Tapping into preconceived notions. 3. Emotional barriers. Emotional barriers are the negative feelings, beliefs, or attitudes that interfere with your ability to communicate confidently and constructively. They can stem from various sources, such as past experiences, low self-esteem, stress, or fear. 4. Cultural barriers. Cultural barriers prevent people from different cultures from effectively communicating and working with each other. Cultural barriers can be caused by differences in languages, beliefs, or values. 5. Language barriers. A barrier to communication between people who are unable to speak a common language. 6. Gender barriers. Gender barriers to communication. Communications barriers between women and men can cause problems both at home and at the workplace. Causes of semantic barriers in communication. Homophones, homonyms, homographs. Homophones are words that have the same pronunciation but different meanings which might have different spelling too. Example. Words, by and by. Homonyms are the words which have the same pronunciation and their spellings are mostly the same but the intended meaning is different. Example. The noun bear and the verb bear have different meanings but same pronunciation and spelling. Homographs are the words that have the same spelling but the pronunciation and meaning are different. Example. He finished in 1 second but he's still the second place. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged by individuals through a common system of symbols, signs or behavior. It all known as a way of exchanging information. Perspectives in communication refer to the different lenses through which people view and interpret the communication process. These perspectives can have a significant impact on the way people communicate and how they understand messages. Perspective helps us to understand situations from other positions, to consider other beliefs, experiences and viewpoints. Lesson 2. Elements of communication. Elements of communication refer to the fundamental components involved in the process of transmitting information from a sender to a receiver. These elements include 1. Sender. The sender is the person or entity who initiates the communication process by creating and formulating the message. The sender's goal is to convey information or ideas to the receiver. 2. Receiver. The receiver is the intended recipient of the message. They are responsible for receiving and interpreting the message sent by the sender. The receiver's understanding and response to the message determine the effectiveness of communication. 3. Encoding. Encoding is the process of converting thoughts, ideas, or information into a form that can be transmitted to the receiver. The sender encodes the message using a specific language, symbols, or nonverbal cues to effectively convey the intended meaning. 4. Message. The message is the information, idea, or content that the sender wants to communicate to the receiver. It can take various forms, such as spoken or written words, gestures, images, or signals. The message carries the intended meaning and is the core element of communication. 5. Channel, the path. Channel or medium through which encoded message is transmitted to the receiver is known as media. It is the carrier of the message. The method of delivering the message. 6. Decoding, the process of translating the encoded message into an effective language, which can be understood by the receiver, is known as decoding. The interpretation of the message. 7. Feedback, the process of reversal of communication in which the receiver expresses his reaction to the sender of the message is known as feedback. The response or action a receiver takes after decoding a message. 8. Context. Context refers to the environment of communication in which the interaction happens or takes place. 9. Barrier. Any construction or hindrance which hampers the communication process is known as noise. The hindrance may be caused to the sender, message, or receiver. Lesson 3. Communication theories and models. Spiral of silence theory. According to the spiral of silence theory, individuals will be more confident and outward with their opinion when they notice that their personal opinion is shared throughout a group. But if the individual notices that his opinion is unpopular with the group, he will be more inclined to be reserved and remain silent. Magic bullet needle theory. The magic bullet theory implies that the originator of a message is able to impact its audience by directly injecting it with a message. Uses and gratification approach theory. The uses and gratifications approach views the audience as active, meaning that they actively seek out specific media and content to achieve certain results or gratifications that satisfy their personal needs. The sources of the media chosen are distinctive. 4 uses and gratification. Filled square. Diversion or entertainment, watching videos to get away from the other problem. Filled square. Personal relationship, as a substitute for a real emotional and interpersonal interaction. Filled square. Personal identity, association with characters in texts and TV programs, and they also learn behavior and values from media. Filled square. Surveillance, to satisfy their need for information. Cognitive dissonance theory. Cognitive dissonance theory postulates that an underlying psychological tension is created when an individual's behavior is inconsistent with his or her thoughts and beliefs. Helical model. The helical model of communication is a framework inspired by the three-dimensional spring-like curve of a helix. It argues communication is cyclical, continuous, non-repetitive, accumulative, and influenced by time and experience. Bada to Matanda. Aristotle model. The Aristotle model of communication is the widely accepted and the most common model of communication where the sender sends the information or a message to the receivers to influence them and make them respond and act accordingly. Fisher's model. Fisher's model is a development model consisting of 4 stages. An accord is emerging within a group by going through these stages. Filled square orientation. Getting to know each other. Filled square. Conflict problem is analyzed. Filled square. Emergence. Structure is clear and they try to compromise. Filled square. Reinforcement. Final choice was decide and formed a solidarity within the group. 2 types of model. Filled square. Linear model, source greater than message greater than receiver. Filled square. Transactional model, giving feedback. ABX model, social equilibrium. Example: source, message, greater than conflict greater than receiver. Lesson 4. Functions of communication. Regulation, control. It is a communication function that controls an individual, a small group or large audience in a form of a request, order, command, laws or rules. Social interaction, when communication is used to socialize and interact with other people. Motivation, when communication is used to inspire or incline other people to continue an aspiration or achieve a dream or goal. Emotional expression refers to how one conveys emotional experience through both verbal and nonverbal behavior. Emotional expressions include facial movements like smiling or scowling, simple behaviors like crying, laughing, or saying thank you, and more complex behaviors like writing a letter or giving a gift. Information dissemination is the process of sharing new or existing information with others. It can be done verbally, through writing, or via technology. Lesson 5. Nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication refers to the transmission of messages and information through means other than spoken or written words. It encompasses various nonverbal cues, such as body language, facial expressions, gestures, posture, eye contact. Example: drawing. You can express your feelings or emotion through drawing. Types of nonverbal communication. Adornment. Design that decorates a human or things, clothing and tattoos. X. Clothing. A person with a suit, meaning she will have to attend something that needs to formal. Chronemics. While chronemics relates to the use of time in communication. Example: arriving early for a meeting or appointment is considered a sign of respect and punctuality. Haptics. Using hand to simply as touching someone to communicate. X. Patting someone's head, meaning you are comforting that person. Proxemics. Proxemics in nonverbal communication involves the signals we show with our body language and the space we create. If we stand farther away from someone, we communicate nonverbally that we don't feel very close or safe with them. Locomotion, meaning moving to one place to another. Example: running and jogging. X. Running, meaning someone is in a hurry. Olfactics. An example could be an acquaintance house with a floral scent showing and creating a positive atmosphere influencing the inside of the property. X. Involves use of smell in communication, as smell can evoke emotions, reactions or memories. Oculesics. Using an eye movement to communicate. X. Fierce gaze, meaning a person is mad at you by looking at you in a fearsome look. Facial expression. Facial expression shows our mood, which could affect conversation. Example: smiling shows positive facial expression which conveys happiness or friendliness. Kinesics. Hand and arm movements, leg movements, facial expression, eye contact and blinking. Stance and posture, meaning body language. X. Bowing, meaning someone is apologizing. Posture refers to the way a person holds their body. Example: standing tall with their shoulders back and head held high may convey confidence. Lesson 6. Communication Ethics. What is ethics? Ethics is a based on well-founded standard of right and wrong that prescribe what humans taught to do. Ethics in communication is the judgment we make based on how appropriate our statements, behaviors, and actions are in particulate situation. Ethical principles of communication. It advocates truthfulness, accuracy, honesty, and reason as essential to the integrity of communication. National Communication Association. It endorses freedom of expression, diversity of perspective, and tolerance of dissent to achieve the informed and responsible decision-making fundamentals to a civil society. NCA 1999. It condemns communication that degrades individuals and humanity through distortion, intimidation, coercion and violence, and through the expression of intolerance and hatred. 1999. It believes that communication should accept responsibility for the short and long-term consequences and expect the same of others. 1999.